Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for being there. So, as the EXA working group on citizen science and open science, we suggested to have this open discussion about citizen science communication. And in this open conversation with our colleagues that will intervene first, we want to highlight how this citizen science communication involves a set of practices that are diverse, collaborative, as citizen science is in the end. And we will also explore some dimension of the openness of these practices. So we will first listen to some experience from Rafael, Maya, Christina, Marion, and Claire, that I thank you very much for being there to talk with us. And I will, I think I will introduce them all in a row, and then you will listen to them all in a row. And then we will start the open discussion with them for about 30 minutes. And then we will open the floor to all of your questions. So around the table, I'm happy to convene Rafael Batz, that is a co-coordinator with Camille Jalicot. Hey, Rafael, you shake your hand like that? Ciao, everyone. She's co-coordinator with Camille Jalicot of the Urfist in Bordeaux, one of the nodes of the Urfist, so this national French network that are dedicated to trainings and research on science and technology, communication and information systems. Then we have Maya Fedeli. Ciao, Maya. Citizen Science and European Project Communication Officer at the University Vita Salute San Raffaele in Milan. Then we have Cristina Luis. Ciao, Cristina. That she is the head of communication and researchers at the Change Institute and at the Faculty of Science, University of Lisbon. Okay, three countries already. Then with us there is also Marion Polak. Ciao, Marion. She works for Opera's research infrastructure, and she is the community manager for the European Diamond Capacity Hub. And we have Claire Murray. Ciao, Claire. She is freelance researcher in citizen science and science communication. So in the same order, you are going to listen what they bring first to the table of our conversation. So Rafael, I let you the floor first.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. So to illustrate the issues I encounter in scientific communication and citizen science, I would like to tell you about the EcoDoc project, a project from the University of Bordeaux. This is a project I'm leading with my colleague Mathilde Garnier, and a steering committee of information professionals like researchers, librarians, cultural officials, promotion of research officers, etc., etc. And it's also citizen science project involving, so on this hand, this committee, and on another hand, citizens from outside of the academic field. And the first one, the committee, really take part to the project from A to Z, developing methodology, actions, etc., etc. And the second one, the citizens, help us to design the dispositive that is in the core of our project. But for this part of the participation process, working with citizens outside of our usual network, we encountered several difficulties. So first, finding participants. And second, ensuring that we could have a common or collective interest in our issue so we could work together. And our issue is how to improve the circulation of scientific information about the topic of forest in a situation of climatic transition. So to do that, we decided to set up an experiment. We called that Science Slam workshop, which is in fact, we organized some writing workshop with citizens to slam some scientific data about forest. So we collected a corpus of forest ecology data. So as you can imagine, it's Excel sheet, graphs, etc., etc., pictures, synchrotron pictures, things pretty difficult to understand. And so this data came from 4 research projects led by researchers in ecology from our university site. So the data were presented in a very raw form without any explanation or very small explanation, very little context. And it was presented and proposed to citizens during workshops organized in libraries, public and academic libraries, forest visits, training session, etc., etc., stand, booth, etc. So we built the workshop with an association of slam poets named Street Deaf Records from Bordeaux in France. And in the end, we had 142 participants from 11 to 83 years old, and 156 written slams between October 23 and December 24. So what I want to say about that is that beyond this experience that taught us a lot of sensitive mediation. Sorry, about slam. Slam is a kind of a poetry, but with a lot of rhythm and this yeah, I don't know how to explain that very, very soon. I hope that everybody understands, but I could give you an example later. So beyond what this experience taught us in terms of sensitive mediation of research and about expression of concern in a group, it also led us to take an interest in the issue of scientific communication and more generally about the publication of science when you do science with a very different kind of people, from academics to non-academics. So as part of this experiment, we have published a collection of Science Slam text as a book. It's a true book. So it's like a poetry book, but with science data and science text. So all the texts produced during the workshop were published in this book. It was distributed to participants, funders, and university and municipal libraries for inclusion in their catalogs. And the book is prepared with 1 page with the data, 1 page with the SLAM text. We have also integrated SLAM into scientific conferences. And when I say that, I want to say excerpts from the text products, but also new text that I produce based on my research. Before this experience, I never slammed, not my life. And now, during 3 scientific communication, I slammed my conclusion. So I presented my research in a slam way in a scientific conference. We added slam to undergraduate courses as a creative practice for scientific mediation in other disciplines. So in sociology, we begin with ecology, but we try now with sociology. And it was a pedagogic experiment, but also a way to make the link between science communication as a science for peer, and science communication as science for the public. And also we written a research media guide. We call that Lecture sensible de la science, so it's sensitive reading of science, which give us a lot of space for explaining this experience and the results, etc. So in other words, we have created something like a cross-fertilization between the text written by the participants and our own, between academic places to diffuse science and non-academic mediums, between research and education, between audiences, between author, etc., etc. So today we have one more publishing experiment to try, and the question is: will we dare to include one of our slam texts about our own research in an article that we are due to submit soon? So that was my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rafael. That was really nice introduction. Maya, what are you going to tell
Everyone.
us?
Yes, so to start this very short speech, I have to introduce myself a little bit because it's needed. So actually, I'm not a storyteller by training. I'm actually an immunologist, and I do work in a university that shares its campus with one of the biggest hospitals in Italy. So basically, we deal every day with biomedical research. And this leads to the fact that in our citizen science project, we are almost always talking about patients and people living with diseases. So these needs extra care in the language that you use, in the way you approach these people, uh, because really it's needed. And I will tell you a couple of projects that we are working on, and one in which we use storytelling, and and another one in which I would like to tell you a story. So in the first one, we use storytelling because we ask pupils of middle schools to tell us with stories, drawings, creating small videos they did also on tablets, and they try to really show us which were the situations that they found stressful in school, in the school environment. And where is the research here that our psychologists are going to use these text, images, drawings as a stimuli that they will use with adolescents that have really issues, psychiatric issues, and these will be examples that they will give to the patients in order to represent stressful conditions in schools. But this exemplification of the stressful condition had been created by students of the same age, healthy students of the same age. But it was a nice experience because we created these groups, and really the pupils were so happy to tell us about their even when they were stressed by their professor, their teachers, because they felt free to draw and to tell. And this is nice because they're gonna help other boys and girls of the same age uh, with their help. And the second story I would like to tell you is about a project on diabetes that we had. In this project, we are, let's say, do a crowdsourcing of the research teams because we would like to shape the future directions of the research we're doing on cellular therapies for diabetes. And I would like to tell you this. We created a questionnaire, a simple questionnaire, but we created this talking with people with diabetes for months, actually. And first, we imposed ourselves to always say people with diabetes and never say patients, because we really would like to stay in a same safe environment in which everyone was able to speak. And we would like to disrupt the hierarchical order in which you have the doctor and then you have the patient. We wanted to stay all on the same level. And what happened to me that I participated to a public engagement event on diabetes, and for the first time in my life, I was sitting in a room full with 400 people, maybe not all of them, but at least half of them, maybe they had people accompanying them, but let's say 400 people with diabetes. And I was sitting in that room and I heard continuously the beeping of the devices they use to measure the glucose level in their blood, and advising them to take, for example, to eat something or to do the insulin or whatever. And I really felt in that moment, I felt the burden of that because this beeping was continuous. I heard it throughout the whole day. And I never reasoned about what was about living with diabetes really. And then I went out and there was the coffee break, and the coffee break was the sweetest one that I saw in my life, full of chocolate, sugars, candies, because it was done on purpose to help them, because the event was planned to be accessible and and really enjoyable for them to stay the whole day. And this is something that I really would like say, even I have a very special context, which is the one of biomedical sciences, that when we start to talk and we heard stories, we can feel connected with everyone, even if you never met that kind of person before. And this is something we should do in every citizen science project. Try to put yourself in their shoes. And that's all.
Thank you, Maya. That was very interesting talk. Christina, it's your turn. What are you going to present us?
Okay, thank you very much. To begin, I would like to thank the invitation to be here to talk a little bit about two subjects that really passion me, that are citizen science and science communication, and how they can come together. And actually, this was a very nice invitation, and I would like to talk about a project that I was fortunate to be part of between 2020 and 2023. So it started with a pandemic, which was actually very, very challenging. But it was a very nice experience. So the project was Newsera, with a very bold name. So citizen science as a new paradigm for science communication. And what we did during those 3 years was a wonderful experience. So it was a project that had participants from Portugal, Spain, and Italy. And the idea at the beginning was just to involve and engage a few citizen science projects. At the end, we engaged and we worked together with 39 citizen science projects. In Portugal, we worked with 12 projects. And the idea along the process was to work with those projects in order to see what were the challenges in tackling different stakeholders. So what was needed in terms of communication in order to get to different stakeholders. And the challenge was for some of the citizen science projects, and it was excellent to be working with those projects, because many of them didn't have, or in their target audiences, they mainly had society in general. But the challenge here during the projects was that they looked to different stakeholders, to the ones besides the ones they were used to work with. And so working with the quadruple helix, the challenge was to work not only in how they would promote and how would they involve and engage stakeholders, not only from society in general, not only, but also colleagues and researchers they worked with, public decisions, so decision makers and enterprises and industry. So this was a very challenging process, and the idea was we provided a sort of mentoring to those projects in order to see what were the biggest challenges they faced in tackling each of these stakeholders. And we got together, of course, the main challenges they faced, and during the entire process, we get the chance to adapt and adjust, and during the process also try to create supporting documents and documentation and whatever that could be used in the future for other citizen science projects. So it came out from this process that was a very wonderful experience, and it's amazing how the projects were involved in along this process, because it was a long process of almost 3 years being part and engaged in this project. And from all the experiences and by providing this mentoring, we were able to create a guide for citizen science communication and several blueprints in order to help future citizen science projects to improve the way they communicate to these different stakeholders. All these materials are available. They are still available in the website of the project. But another thing that happened in between was the creation of the Coalesce, the funding of the Coalesce project, which is a competence center for science communication. And through this competence center, many of the materials that were produced will be made available there. So to start with, this is an overview of Newsera, and then we can discuss further on details on the challenges that the projects may have faced.
Thank you, Christina. Now it's the turn of Marion that will bring us to other lands, the lands of publishing with another competence centers, right?
Yes, thank you, Alicia. Indeed, I'm going to talk more about a certain publishing model, which is a diamond open access model. So I don't really know how much you know about that, but there are actually several open access routes like gold, green, hybrid, or diamond. And today I would like to focus on diamond. And just to let you know about why diamond open access model is actually very important for citizen science or open science, I just would like to take a very, very quick step back into history. But history is a big word, but because diamond open access actually addresses like a fundamental issue that the publishing landscape has had for decades. That is that large commercial publishers have dominated scientific publishing, turning knowledge into actually a highly profitable business with high expensive subscription fees that limit access, or especially in underfunded regions. So the first time that open access was developed was actually to solve that. But now what we see is that actually many journals still charge authors through what we call APC, like article processing charge, which is a gold open access model. So what it means is actually that we have just shifted the barrier from readers to researchers who have to pay, or the institution, with again many that are excluded. So Diamond Open Access is actually here to break this cycle. It was introduced like maybe 10 years ago in the beginning of the 2020s. And it is a publishing model where no fees are charged to authors or readers. So instead, non-profit organizations, academic institutions, or scholarly societies publish research online for free. This means anyone, anywhere, can access and share scientific knowledge without financial obstacles. What's really important to note is that it's a community-driven model, which is often supported by universities, libraries, or public institutions. And the goal of Diamond Open Access is very simple. It's really that knowledge should be a public good accessible to all, regardless of budget, geography, or institutional affiliation. So the aim is really to put the academic community back at the center of scholarly publishing and not in the center of commercial interest. And to think of like the publishing as an act of making research public and not of making profit of it. And also one thing that is important with Diamond Open Access is that it promotes actually equity by ensuring research judged by its quality and not by an author's ability to pay. And this is particularly meaningful in fields like communication science because it supports biodiversity and multilingualism, which are essential for a more inclusive and global scholarly ecosystem. And I mean, of course, Diamond Open Access has its own challenges, particularly around long-term funding and infrastructure. But unlike the gold model, which relies on APC to get its funding, Diamond OA needs shared financial support through public funding, grants, or multi-year agreements. But what we see today is that there is actually a strong political will for it, with concrete steps that are being taken, like in Europe, we've seen several major initiatives come together to build capacity and long-term support for the diamond model and community, because there is a real Diamond Way community behind it. I mean, I am part of it as community manager of the European Diamond Capacity Hub because it's a collective which was created to support and strengthen the Diamond Way community in Europe by providing service, tools, or training platforms or modules to help them transition from example from Gold Way to Diamond Way. And what's really important to know is that all these tools and services that we have was developed by the community and for the community. So there really is a Diamond Way community behind it. So in short, just to conclude, I think that what's really important to remember is that Open Access is not just about free publishing, it's really about redefining who gets to participate in science and who benefits from it. So thank you, Alicia.
Thank you to you, Marion. And then it's up to Claire to talk of a specific experience you had recently, or not that recently, actually.
Yes, so I am getting the absolute pleasure of talking about the UCount project. And UCount itself, an amazing project, increasing social inclusion by, with, and for youth and young citizen scientists in 9 countries across Europe. The young scientists were aged between, or the youth citizen scientists were aged between 13 and 29. And what I will say is, I just want to make it very clear that I'm telling you about a tiny, tiny, tiny part of this project, a tiny part. There are so many more details, more things, more cool projects that happened. Check out the link just after my talk, not right now. It's amazing. But specifically thinking about open science, the thing that we developed together was we co-created a webinar with the youth. And I'm actually going to come back to that webinar later on. But what I'm just going to kind of quickly talk about here is the fact that we have also been in the process of creating an article with the youth. Now, this has raised so many questions around what is equitable, what is fair, what expectations can we have? And, you know, in the article itself, we describe what we have done. I don't want to jinx us too much because peer reviewers, you know, they might have opinions. But what I will say is that it's been an incredible honor and pleasure to create this process together because, you know, we have kind of explored different languages, different cultures, different representations, workload management, and it's been an incredibly beautiful process. And yeah, I just will maybe kind of drop in a hint to what I'm going to refer to later, where one of our young citizen scientists, her name is Evie, she's amazing. The whole process she described as us, like the whole UCount team, having combined voices. And to me, that's a really fundamental part of open science, is having a combined voice. Alessia.
Sorry, I was taking the notes because you always have these punchlines that is useful to note somewhere. But I think that you can put it in the comment. That would be very nice. Thank you all of you to have introduced some of the topics we are going to explore with the next question. And again, I invite all the attendees of this open discussion to take notes of the question you have, and then you are really welcome to ask what is going on in your mind at the end of the first round of question I will suggest to our speakers. So my first question would be for Raphael. That Raphael, we say it in a bit in French accent would be better, right? And well, it's really interesting the way you presented the cross-pollination of the practices of writing and presenting. But I would like to tell us of another things that you organized at the end of 2023 for your network, and you organized a conference in Bordeaux, and it was about participatory research and especially participatory research communication. And I would say that participatory research is the preferred name for citizen science in the French area. So during this conference, you focused specifically on the practice of participatory research from the point of view of the outputs. That is not usual in our community. And you covered all the cycle, the writing, the publishing, giving value, disseminating participatory research. So my question for you is, to which extent do you believe that citizen science participatory research can be an effective means to reshape how we write and disseminate scientific research? So you made already the example of SLAM, that is a powerful one. From the conference, did you have other takeaways to share with us today?
Okay, thank you for the questions. I decided to answer to the question with the kind of, first I will not slam, and second for a kind of formal answer with more question than answers. Correct. Okay. So to go back on in 2023, sorry, we organized our National Research Day. It's we organize that every 2 years. And in 2023, it was in Bordeaux, and this is the National Research Day of the URFIST network. So this is my unit is in Bordeaux, but there is 6 others in France. And the idea was to work on a topic very exploratory, you know. And we decided to work on this question about the output in science communication for citizen science, because it seems to us that this issue was a really blind spot in participatory science research. So to what extent does citizen science influence the way scientific communication is produced was really our question. And because it was a real blind spot, we couldn't really find some researcher to speak about their research about this topic. So we decided to brought together researchers in many disciplines, like in ecology, sociology, information science, and so on, to present how their participatory research, to present their participatory research, and to invite them to have a self-reflection on their practices in terms of publishing, writing, disseminating, and preserving the outputs of their projects. And it was a blind spot for them too. So it was very interesting to see them, how they took this question and say, okay, I go back on my project, and how did we work or not on these questions? So that was the first point. And the second point, we held a workshop during the same day to have a collective reflection on this topic all together, speakers and attendees. And after this day, the network office decided to continue this reflection with the project of book, to continue to explore these issues from a specific perspective, which is how in information science can study these questions, okay? And so today I would share with you some of the questions we are asking ourselves as we write this book, which is scheduled for publication in late 2025, I think, if we are finished. So I will present just some of the questions. So the first element of reflection is about the production of science communication. Because when we integrate with the integration of non-peers or to different levels of engagement into the research process, citizen science blurred the usual distinction and boundaries of science, but production, but in fact of science communication too. Within this kind of project, the scientific mediation can take place, but the communication between participants is not also exclusively reserved to peers. So it really blurs things. And we think that it will change the communication processes in the group of scientifics, academic or not, and in the diffusion of science. Because if we change the target audiences, the form of production, the type of documents, or the socio-technical devices, etc., everything is supposed to be reshaped or at least re-examined. So that's why we decided to begin with reconsidering the forms of knowledge production and publication. The fact is that we have seen that the diversity of the projects, research project, participatory research project, is in terms of production is very important. We have some documents produced by researchers. We have some documents produced by participants. We have some documents produced for researchers. Some other documents produced for participants. Some documents produced for non-academics people, etc., etc. So we have a kind of confusion also of who is writing for who is the destinataire, and with the specific author for every kind of specific production. So, of course, all the research projects have, we can say, a continuum of scientific communication, from communication to peers and communication to public. But what is interesting for us is the diversity in communication is particularly evident in participatory science and research. In France, we have a chart of citizen science, and by Houlier and Méry-Goudard. And they say it's a necessity to devise and produce the forms, the formats, the mode of scientific writing. And the idea is that the science can be appropriated by all. But what we have seen is that it's not just to be appropriated by the public and the non-scientific peers, not peers, is also a change in the way that we are producing science for the peers, as I say, for the SLAM. And also the diversity of this mode that is accepted leads to a certain freedom in the forms of publication. So we see a lot of experimentation. I say it with the SLAM, but colleagues use comics, some other colleagues use theater, and etc., etc. So and also devices, tools like blogs, video, etc., etc. And it looks like it's the night here. So we have a colleague who share with us the fact that they published academic papers, they published guides, professional documents, blogs, scientific blog and non-scientific blogs, etc., etc. So what we see is a strong diversity of publication in the continuum of science communication. The second element of reflection we had is about the authorship. Because if there is a production, there is an authorship. So the publication of research results, regardless the medium, journal, conference, etc., always raises question about who writes, who takes responsibility for what is said or produced, and who claims authorship of the results for the purpose of recognition, what kind of recognition we are speaking about. So for the question we have to observe is the degree of involvement of non-academic participants change the determination and qualification of authorship? Are you more an author because you collect data, or when you develop the project from A to Z? So the diversity of forms invite us to question this authorship in terms of what the publication medium, but also the convention for signing with the disciplines. Of course, it's very different between sociology and ecology, etc. What it implies in terms of the role and position of authorship. Those names.
Raphael,
that's time.
I guess you have still a lot of things to share with us, but I would like also to ask a question to the other
Sorry.
interveners. No, it's fine, because it's really interesting what you are saying, and this is also helping to go to ask a question to Maya. But
I can conclude.
Yeah, you can just conclude, and it is really interesting because I listen an invitation for a
Yeah,
collaboration between citizen science community and information system researchers to see how we can move forward to change the processes and the
yeah.
socio-technical devices we have.
Yeah. There is this question of authorship, as I said, and we have to understand that the visibility that we can gain through publication and dissemination can be very different if we are a researcher or if we are a non-academic participant. Everyone does not want to be author. Everyone does not want to be considered as responsible for what has been found in the research. So it really has to be a discussion between researcher and the participants to understand what we want to produce. And also there is the third question about the content. What is writing this kind of research? So it's speaking about the kind of language and jargon that we are using in science. It's a question of acculturation, a double acculturation. And I think that's true that we can learn about the production and reception of this form of transmission, about diversity of scientific communication and acculturation to academic and non-academic form of transmission. So as examples, as the SLAM shows that if we're talking about science, that science is largely a matter of making data talk, in fact, okay, of rendering intelligible and reality that is first reduced to data, okay. Then I think the typically human mode of narrative could be a way of restoring a sensitive and situated continuum to research, and it could help us to transform it into shared knowledge. So to conclude, we address many other issues in the book, but always with the aim of questioning what participatory science opens up in terms of new practices and question. So it's to invite researchers in information science or other fields to study that, but it's also to invite researchers wishing to lead some citizen science project to pay attention to what they produce, what they publish, what they disseminate, as also a central element of the participation.
Thank you, Raphael.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
No. Maya, I go quickly to you and I try to keep it short. And in the meanwhile, I invite all who are listening to start sending the question in the chat if you have, so we may pick them during the conversation. Maya, in your introduction, I feel like you were using storytelling to let us come closer to the experience you had. And you are also the co-chair of with Andrea Troncoso of the storytelling working group of EXA. But I have a question about storytelling as a tool, a practice. So, because to me that they came from journalism, it looks like it can not that much open creativity, but we are obliged to follow a schema. So, and I'm thinking about the TED Talks that have this really formatted format that we have to follow, and then in the end, well, we know what is coming next. So my question is, there is a risk overall that using storytelling may hinder the creativity of the people that want to communicate because they feel constrained by the format, and how we can apply storytelling to a so large diversity of formats that can be TED Talk, but also comics, like Raphael were citing comics and theater right now.
So actually, this is a really great point because it's true that when people hear storytelling, they often picture polished formats like the TED Talks. They have a clear arcs, a rehearsed delivery, and even a kind of formula. And TED Talks are influential, but as you said, can become a kind of storytelling template. And they are powerful, but in citizen science, I guess, at least we can see it as something much broader, much more flexible. And you introduced nicely the working group. Thank you so much. And let me just say that if anyone want to join, please drop me an email, and I will be happy to let you in the group. And actually, we really emphasize that storytelling shouldn't be about fitting into a mold, but it's about making space for different voices, styles, rhythms, and context of the people that are involved. If you remember the story about diabetes, for example. And rather than limiting creativity, storytelling should be unlocking it. And we should let people bring their own tone, language, format, and whether that's a photo essay, a comic, a spoken word performance, or a casual conversation, for example. Because really, the risk isn't the storytelling itself, it's when we treat it as one style is the only valid one, as the TED Talk, and really advocate for pluralism. So stories told through local dialects, the visuals, informality. We can use humor. Humor, I use it a lot. Emotion, and let me say something about, for example, folk tales. We organized some months ago a workshop on fairy tales and folk tales, and we have these interests because folk tales have been used since human beings were born to teach, something. And in folk tales, you can find a sort of wisdom that is transmitted through generations. And this is something that you can really work on. And in the workshop, and you can find it on the YouTube EXA channel if you want to see it. And we use a very famous tale that was the Emperor's New Clothes. And we applied these to having a freedom of speech. I don't know if you remember the story, just to be very quick. The emperor is having these new clothes, but actually he is naked. And everyone has not the power to say freely, but you're naked, until a child arrives and say, but you're naked, why are you going? Because they convince him that he's wearing a very fashioned, very fashion clothes. So we use this story and we apply this to citizen science project to conclude that we should create an environment in which everyone feels entitled to say what they think about the project, whether you are a professional researcher, a citizen, a participant, a communicator, all the members. So that's just to give an example. And just to go on answering your question, in also we also analyzed a project in which a researcher was connected to an artist and they use visual. So it's not only storytelling. However, what connects a classical TED talk or a comic, but also a podcast or a visual or a community mural, is that they all tell a story and they have they share some narrative elements and they bring out characters, a conflict, a transformation, and meaning. And the format is just a container. I was writing you, Alessia, about the hero's journey, which is a classical literary topos that we can use to build a successful story. And also this you can apply to citizen science. So the core story stays the same, but the format, which is just a container, should adapt to the audience and the context. And if you focus on the narrative that is underneath, so the human experience, the curiosity, the challenges, then you can shape the story that really can fit the media that you want to use and then reach the different audiences. For example, comics may be visual and playful, TED Talks are structured, as we said, but they both engage to story. So really, for citizen science, it's not only about choosing the best format, which is important, however, but also you should recognize the richness of citizen science and find really the right language for each context or the plurality of languages that you need. And then you can open up the access and the engagement, and then we meet people where they truly are. And just to conclude, I'm concluding. So the storytelling for me, it's a tool for translation. You can turn scientific outcomes in meaningful and relatable experiences. And using different formats, you reflect the diversity of citizen science itself. and you can reach a broader range of publics, from children to policymakers and local communities and global forum.
Thank you, Maya. So there is a lot to try out in terms of format and the way of supporting also the people that want to engage in citizen science communication. And Christina, in your experience, you supported in the project, you saved 39 citizen science project. And you identified with them different challenges in implementing citizen science communication strategies to a diversity of stakeholders. So the question for you is, if you can tell us shortly a
No
bit
worries.
more about which resources are needed actually. What does it take to support and make a science communication plan for a citizen science project? This is not coming straightforward for everyone, right?
It is not, and in fact, it's a challenge, and it was a big challenge that many of the projects, of course, identified. I think the biggest challenge they identified was that they didn't have human resources and people who knew about communication or science communication within their citizen science project. So they didn't have a person allocated for that or with a lot of experience. And what we saw also was that the projects that were more successful were the ones that had human resources allocated during the entire time. So human resources, and the other resource that was also very much talked about, of course, setting aside the financial one that is always there, was time to dedicate to science communication, because some of the citizen science projects, they are made in between other things. So some of the projects that we followed, they were done by researchers that are at other or by NGOs that had other things to do in between. And they also had a citizen science project that they were running, and having time to allocate to the project itself and then to communication was a challenge. And picking up a little bit on what Maya said about, so looking at different stakeholders, and one of the things that she mentioned about the format to get into the to different audiences. One of the things identified was the challenge of keeping people engaged, and how can you really keep those that are interested engaged? And it's not an easy task. Of course, dealing with social media is interesting, but many of the projects notice that personal contact is what is needed. Because you need to really have time to have that personal contact with those that are collaborating and participating and being engaged. And so this is something that needs to be set out when a citizen science is made. So when a citizen science project is being set up, it's really needed to think about how to communicate what is being done, keep people engaged, and so which resources are needed for this. Otherwise, what we see and from the projects that we followed, and I give the experience from those that we followed in Portugal, because those were the ones that we closed, that we worked closer with them. Most of them already disappeared. They are not in place anymore because there was not enough. There were not enough resources to keep the citizen science working, and there were not enough resources in order to maintain communication. So in terms of sustainability, it's really, it should be thought about, should we be doing this citizen science project or not? Do we have the conditions in order to keep it working for a long time? Because from the 12, I would need to, I think 4 or 5 are still working, but the other ones, no.
Okay, thank you, Christina. So what I take from your answer is that really it takes a lot to support citizen science communication for a project, and a lot of citizen science project may need some help
Yes,
for that, because
for
they
sure.
don't own themselves the capacity to hire more resources, human resources, or give more time than what they already did to participate on a participatory citizen science project. And you set aside a bit the question of money, but I take it back when it comes to publication venues, because it's an important part of our process, at least in the academic community, a big challenge also. So I go back to Marion, because in the so we saw several formats. We with Raphael, we say that maybe the whole a lot of the information system that he thought for academic publication process might change if more practice are introduced. But when you talk about Diamond Open Access, is also about encouraging and supporting researchers to take back the ownership of the publication venues. That may be a benefit for citizen science, as they include researchers as well. And open access, Diamond Open Access publication are free for authors and readers. So, to which extent do you think this move is for more justice in general and equality when it comes to scientific publication? How this can benefit citizen science?
Yeah, thank you, Alyssa, for the question. I will try to be quite quick in order to let others speak after. But it's actually a very important question because, I mean, Diamond Open Access by nature is more justice and more equality, is for more justice and equality in scientific publishing, because the most obvious benefit from Diamond model is that it's equity and inclusivity, because it allows scholars, as you said, regardless of their financial situation, to publish. Because Gold Open Access relies on APC, so it's by nature inequitable. It excludes many authors who simply can't afford the fees, especially those from low or middle income, I mean, countries or institutions who doesn't have the funds to allow their author to publish on it. When Diamond Open Access, remove this completely. You can publish for free and everyone can read. And I think that's why, for example, many regions like Latin America have embraced Diamond Way so strongly, because there, around 95% of the open access model are Diamond. The journals are Diamond. And this approach not only, supports authors without big budget, but also promotes bibliodiversity, because authors are writing in languages other than English. These authors then find more space to publish in because they can write in their own languages. And this is crucial because commercial publishers tend to prioritize English-only journals. So Diamond Way actually ensures that knowledge is truly open to all, with no paywalls and without all these obstacles at first. And another key point to finish is that Diamond Open Access journals are non-profit and community-driven. So unlike large commercial publishers who are profit-focused, Diamond publishers are often universities or scholarly societies. They don't, exploit authors' work for financial gain, but dedicate themselves actually to the academic disciplines and communities. And that means the publishing process is driven by academic values, not commercial interest. And when you are not committee owned, when you don't own your journal, for example, you don't get to decide what's going on it. So if a publisher decides to change something on it, you don't really get a say. That's why it's important to actually own your title or own the journals that you are going to publish in. to give it back to the community. And this is what we meant by reclaiming the academic commons, like creating a space where knowledge is shared openly as a true public good, because this model helps redistribute power in scholarly communication and builds a fairer, more inclusive and scientific ecosystem. So I would say that yes, I mean, Diamond Open Access is much more than just free publishing. It's a movement for equity, diversity, and ownership, which enable researchers worldwide to actually participate in science, no matter their budget, language, or location. And I hope I was quick enough.
Thank you, Marion. Yeah, we are a bit rushing to keep at least 5 minutes for the open question. But I mean, thank you very much for this input. What I take away is that as citizen science practitioner, we may think not only about taking back ownership about diversity of formats and pushing to have an effect on the formats that are used in academic publishing, but also thinking about taking back the ownership of the venues where we are going to publish our works. That is really interesting. And we thought a lot. We talked a lot about formats that are somehow fixed in I mean I don't know how to say it, but we are not talking enough about conversation. I mean, we are doing a webinar, we are conversating a lot, we are having ideas. So I came back to Claire. You mentioned that you co-created a workshop, right, with the Yacht and you count. So how you applied, if any, the principle of open science in that experience with the Yacht and you count?
Yeah, so this was something that I think was an incredible learning experience. I am going to share the webinar here so you can go and back up what I'm saying to you and see it in action yourselves, which I highly recommend. It's amazing. But when you think about like the UNESCO recommendations, their guiding principles on open science, one of the big ones is equality of opportunities. And a big question there for us in the citizen science realm should then be, what does that mean? What does that actually look like? How do we manifest that? How do we physically embody or physically create that? And that's where this webinar, I think, explores a really interesting space, because the webinar was co-created at the start by the youth. They created the questions they wanted to ask. They created the evaluation that the participants and they themselves wanted to explore. They then at the end, they also presented themselves in various different ways, in ways that they were comfortable with, and working very closely with their case researchers who were amazing. And then finally, they also actually did the kind of reflection afterwards. So we had a reflection session where we discussed what worked, what didn't work, how did they feel about it. So they were heavily involved in each stage of the process. So very much, equal opportunities, going back to the principle of collaboration, participation, they were fully involved. So it was really a beautiful process to watch. It was a huge amount of work. It was also hard, not just for us as organizers or the case researchers who were working closely with them, who were amazing, but also for the youth themselves. They were there at inconvenient times between school and work, for example. They were a variety of ages. Some of them had less experience using technology. Many of them had never public spoke before. Complete first time, like live to the world online. That's pretty scary. And so it was just for us a complete honor to see these incredible, clever, smart, super creative young citizen scientists take the stage on their terms. And that's something I think we should be advocating more in citizen science for, especially given we ascribe to open science. Because, if we think about respect, we think about inclusion, these are some of the things that we need to make that happen. I will stop so there's time for questions, but please do feel free to ask any questions in the chat.
Thank you, Claire, to be go straight to the point as usual. So we have few minutes before the end of this webinar, with less time than we expected for the open question. But really, I invited you to ask a question in the chat if you have. So I will leave some seconds of full silence waiting for your questions. So we have an information coming in the chat.
Can I just make a comment in the meanwhile?
Yep.
What I got from all the interesting things that the other panelists said is really we need a collaboration of different, even professional figures, I guess, because sometimes it's difficult, to know everything, to do everything, to be everywhere, and because you need the scientific rigor that we need in citizen science, we need the communication skills, we need the knowledge on where to publish. So really, I think it's amazing, and thank you, Alessia, for organizing this because it was nice to see this pluralism of voices, and we really need this. So thank you so much.
Thank you to you, Maya, for the comment. And Claire, you want to add on this?
I just have a quick question, actually, if no one else wants to ask a question. It's actually for Christina, because I haven't had the chance to quickly scan through all of your amazing deliverables that Maya was talking about. They sound incredible. But I wondered, did you learn anything from all these conversations with different citizen science projects about science communication in the broader sense of financially how people maybe should be thinking about distributing budget, or what things really worked well and what we should all be doing in future citizen science projects, for example?
Mhm. No, we didn't discuss that point on the financial aspects. Everybody, of course, mentioned that. I didn't avoid the question of financial support because it's there always. It's something that it's there. So it's not worth mentioning it because it should be there. That we all need financial support in order to implement things. So it's like almost mandatory. Of course, things can be done without it, with a lot of volunteer work, but actually it gets into a point where financial support is needed. I just give you an example. The Portuguese Citizen Science Network has been working on a volunteer basis, and it worked like that until for almost 3 years, but it got into a point that we had to formalize it in order to obtain financial support. But in terms of what is needed, and we discussed that, and it really what all the citizen science need to work on, and it's they should suppose they would need to look at is how they can keep up communication. It's really needed to see and to set up, and to, even if it's not an elaborated communication plan, because every time we talk about the communication plan, it looks like it needs to be a big document with a lot of pages. Oh, I should do this and that. It's not that, but a plan is needed in order to check what is, if we want to tackle different audiences, or the audiences we need to tackle, how can we keep up with that? What is needed in order to get, for example, to enterprises and industry? It's usually not a stakeholder that many citizen science projects communicate with. And it was a big challenge for our citizen science projects, the ones we worked with, to tackle this stakeholder. Some of them had already worked with industry and SMS, but they never, it was they never kind of identified what would be the key points in order to communicate with them. And so it's really essential to think, okay, my primary stakeholder is this one, and then the other one. So what do I really need in order to tackle this stakeholders? So always thinking about the audiences we want to work with, we want to collaborate, we want to involve and engage. So I think that this would be the biggest advice is to really take some time in order, when preparing a citizen science project, when initiating one, or even for the ones that are already rolling, is this working? Am I keeping up with the communication? So why don't I engage more people? Why do people give up on collaborating? What is needed? Is it, and also listening to the audiences and to the participants. So we had, I know some projects that really work quite well, but they have time and they keep during their projects a lot of time to dedicate to people they are collaborating with. So with the participants, they truly dedicate time for that, for feedback, for organizing conferences, to present results, a lot of things like this. So they have that time dedicated.
Thank you, Christina, Claire, and all for the question. There is some question in the chat. We are not going to address all them. Well, there is answers that are coming. One is about the materials, those idea to support citizen science communication. So Claire answered, and Christina, you may want to put a link to the guide that you produce in the newsletter. And the other question, a very important one, as all your question, is about multilingualism. How we can tackle the challenge of, especially in big projects that are asked to have outcomes also in English, for the sake of reporting and academic publishing, how we can back. So Claire said, give some insight about the UCount project, and Rafael, also you suggested from your experience. And from mine, there is also the experience of the Coeso project that involved several small-scale local projects across Europe. And there we worked a lot with the participant as well to make translations. I mean, not only plain translation of a given text, but really versioning also the communication to make it more accessible and easy to read, not actually only for the local participant, but for all, because we then benefit all about all this work of translating and working the formats. So these are the multilingualism is really an important topic. Now you, Rafael. I got that you have to go, and we are going to close the webinar because we said we'll last until now. I would only like to do one little thing before saying goodbye to everyone. I will ask our speakers to say one word to take away from the webinar, and I would like that all the participants also put in the chat their own word. The word is that you go out from this webinar with. Well, mine is could be information system, because I have in mind that we need to change it in the publication system. So it's just as a post-it for myself. We have to work on that. Claire, Maya, Marion, Christina, what would be yours?
So mine would be pluralism.
For me, I will go maybe 2 words: community engagement.
Co-creation.
Yeah. Time.
Time. Oh, nice one. And for who is listening, what is the word that you put in the chat? Or if you want to say it out loud, it's fine as well.
Engagement.
Possibilities. I'm reading the chat.
Inspiration as well in the chat.
Communication. Co-creation. Thank you. That's a good, nice word also. Cooperation, engagement, co-creation, inclusion.
I will add dedication.
Dedication. Then we have accessibility, important word as well. All the words we are saying are really important. Audience. Thank you very much to everyone having participated to this webinar. And I hope we all go back with a lot of ideas to collaborate together. This is the aim of the working group of citizen science and open science, build bridging between the different communities that care about while communicating and sharing all what we do in citizen science. So thank you, everyone, and have a nice day, and see you at the next occasions.
Thank you.
Online.
Thank you so much.